That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. The second film directed by Michael Chaves, obviously the third film in the Conjuring franchise series, not counting the Annabelle offshoots, which Warner Brothers is releasing June 4th, 2021.
This director?
You're going to laugh when I tell you what his first film was.
We'll see.
The Curse of La Llorona.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, people like that movie, so be careful.
He also notably directed the music video for Billie Eilish's Bury a Friend, which I do like.
Okay. This movie is about the Warrens, again.
Our old friends.
Vera Farmiga plays Lola. No, not Lola. Lola's the witch. What's her character's name?
Lorraine.
Lorraine. And then what's Patrick Wilson's character's name?
Ed.
Lorraine and Ed. Okay, so it's 1981, and we're told that this is their most sinister case yet. We start with an 8-year-old boy.
There's most sinister discovery. In this case, yes.
So an 8-year-old boy is possessed, and the Warrens are there in an attempt to exorcise this demon. The little boy lives with his mom, dad, and older sister. And the older sister is dating this guy. Older as in like 18, 19.
Debbie.
Her name's Debbie, but her boyfriend's name is Arne. Okay, Arne has a very strong connection to this little boy. So much so that when the boy is like in the middle of the exorcism, when the demon's taking over this boy's body, Arne grabs him and tells the demon, like, take me instead. Mm-hmm. We can get to it, but under no circumstances would I, like, my girlfriend's kid brother, like, accept a demon for him. But anyway, Arne does. Now he's possessed. Okay, so then we fast forward a little bit, and we see that Debbie and Arne, they live and work at, like, this dog shelter.
I don't know if both of them live there, but there's some cut corners.
The person who runs this dog shelter is an absolute alcoholic. And one day, Arne, who is possessed by, or so we think is possessed, kills the owner. So he is arrested, charged, and he's arrested and put in jail awaiting trial for the murder of this person. The Warrens go to his attorney and say, it wasn't his fault. He was possessed by a demon. You need to plead not guilty. So they do.
And there's some finagling because that doesn't happen until the demon that was in the small boy caused Ed to have a heart attack. And we
think it's a demon.
We had to wait for Ed to wake up to convey that.
So I guess the main story is the Warrens say that the Warrens say they're going to get evidence to show this boy was possessed by a demon, and that's why he killed. Like, he pleads not guilty because of demonic possession. But the gag is he was not possessed by a demon. So stupid. He was cursed by a witch.
Yeah. So
the bulk of the film is the Warrens. Well, they even say, like, how do we even do this? And Ed says, well, let's start at the beginning. So
she says that.
She says that. So they go to the house the first day that this little boy moved in, and they see that he has an experience.
They're listening to the tapes. When the family moved in, there was a waterbed, and
what's her name again? Vera's name?
Lorraine.
Lorraine goes in the basement and sees that there's some sort of figurine under the basement. They do some research and find out it's like a
witch's totem.
A witch's totem. And like that's used to like curse people or put a spell on them. So to wrap it up, we find out that, well, before we wrap it up, the Warrens get information that there's some like retired priest,
Kastner,
living in the area who might be able to help. So they go over there, and just like how the Warrens at their house have like a locked room filled with all their like artifacts, so does this man. He spent his career as a priest studying a particular cult.
The Disciple of the Ram.
And he has a lot of information related to this one cult. Like, he has an entire basement filled with stuff. And at first he tells the Warrens, like, you don't want any of this heat. Like, just leave it alone. But of course they say to him, like, you don't know what we know. Ultimately, we find out that the witch who put the spell on the little boy, which then transferred to Arne. There's also a subplot of like a missing girl, which we'll get to later. And then, Patrick Wilson's character, Ed. This witch is the daughter of the retired priest.
Yes.
He's not working with her. He just has this love for his daughter, so he doesn't want to hem her up, which I think is so funny because, like, you're a priest and your daughter is like a witch who's like conjuring demons. But this witch put a spell on all said people, and the father says, if you can destroy her altar, you will like release the spell. So the Warrens find her little lair and destroy her altar, and the spell's broken. But another gag is that Arne, he still gets convicted of manslaughter because they didn't prove shit. Like, because I think that's so dumb. Like, well, anyway, so that's the end. He like
which casts aspersions on what the Warrens actually discovered.
Nothing. Anyway, where should we begin? We went to a screening.
This is the first time you and I were together in a theater.
Since My Spy?
The Empty Man.
No, before a review.
Before a press screening, yeah, My Spy.
My Spy. Yeah.
Anyway, so Michael Chaves is taking James Wan, of course, another one of his franchises he started is being run into the ground, a la Saw. I don't know if Insidious is quite there yet, arguably. This was written by David Leslie Johnson-McGoldrick, who wrote the film Orphan, starring Vera Farmiga, that I quite like.
Oh, yeah.
But also a lot of films I haven't liked since then, like Red Riding Hood and Aquaman and The Conjuring 2 from 2016.
This story was some bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't help that, well, speaking for myself, I'm an atheist, so more often than not, I was kind of chuckling under my breath.
Okay, but even if a person does believe in the idea of like evil spirits and possessions and witchcraft, those subject matters can be handled in a fashion that is, for someone who doesn't believe it, still creepy.
Friedkin's original Exorcist, for sure, which this film I think is kind of trying to ape with these low angular shots, and when the priest shows up for this exorcism in the beginning, much like a particular sequence in The Exorcist, and you have a character telling the demon to take me, is our starting point. It's like, this is the third film, and this is when you try to be the most sinister discovery. So
first off, I really do like Vera Farmiga, even though
I do too.
Her role in Halston was ridiculous. I do enjoy her. I think that this role as Lola or Lorraine Warren has been run into the ground. Like, the dialogue and the acting, not her acting, but I'm assuming just the material she's been given, it's just like getting worse.
Well, she's supposed to be affected, right? And you haven't seen my Amityville Horror, which I think is the first time a documentary where I was introduced to the Warrens as actual people, and that's technically their most sinister case. But the Warrens don't look like Patrick Wilson. Grace Zabriskie should be playing Lorraine Warren.
So I was gonna say, what I think the problem is it's really hard to take this story seriously, even though I don't believe in this sort of phenomenon, because they look so damn crazy. And particularly, well, the dialogue's bad, but also poor Vera is like these weird glances off into the distance. But anyway.
It's so earnest and sincere that, so Ed, his heart is palpitated by a demon, and then he's in the hospital, and she is at his bedside and won't leave. And the priest comes in and says, Ed would understand, you should go home. Home is where Ed is. And she relates a story that we keep coming back to when they first met, when they were 17, and she went to a theater, The Three Musketeers, starring Lana Turner, and he was what do you call him?
Like the person who works at the movie theater.
Yeah.
An usher? I don't know.
Yeah. So they go on a date, they get ice cream, it's raining, and they kiss under a gazebo. And that's her explanation for staying at his bedside and not leaving.
Yeah, just the storytelling's not good. But let me just go down my notes really fast. In the initial exorcism of the little boy in the beginning of the film, like you have the Warrens, you have the priest who comes in who's like certified to do the exorcism, and then when things start to get bad, someone screams like, Lorraine screams, call 911.
Yeah, I left it.
Like, y'all ain't shit. Like, you didn't do anything. Okay, there is only, I think, one scene in the film that I thought really worked, and I wish the film would have been encapsulated in this tone, which is when Arne kills the guy who runs the kennel.
Who's kind of like a Peter Sarsgaard knockoff.
Arne?
Yeah, no, the guy he kills.
Peter Oh, sure. He's... Like, Arne is, under the spell of this witch, so he's seeing things that aren't really there, and he sees his boss is kind of like an evil entity that's chasing him, and then in the background is Blondie's Call Me playing very loudly, and the lighting. I thought that was very effective. It feels like it's taken from a different movie.
This was shot by Michael Burgess, who did Annabelle Comes Home and The Curse of La Llorona. But yeah, that is kind of the standout scene. It's frustrating though because it's also kind of ruined by that performance, how that actor is directed to behave, who acts like he's
the actor the character who's killed the boss prior to him being killed, he is acting crazy.
And also, to use Call Me, which opened American Gigolo. But yeah, I agree, that was an effective scene.
Okay. When the Warrens attempt to find out, like understand what happened from the beginning, then we see when the boy, the little 8-year-old, first, sees something strange, and it's in like a waterbed. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, all these movies are so derivative, and then every movie has to have that one scene where it's like, oh, this is what we did different from every other film that has the exact same subject matter. And I just thought, it's so obvious. Just trying to find new ways to do the same shit.
I thought that was trying to be an homage to, is it the first Nightmare on Elm Street? There's a bed
with
scene.
Johnny Depp.
There's a bed scene that's very similar to that.
But it's not gory because it's PG-13, so it's literally just this, sort of like a vision under the waterbed that grabs the little boy. Throughout this film and throughout all the Conjurings, I think, how do the Warrens make money?
Well, right.
How do they make money? And why are they so invested in these people? Because the father, the priest who knows information about this cult, he tells them, I hope that you getting this boy out of prison is worth you possibly dying. But it's but that's the idea of every movie.
But then they do this hokey thing where they're care so much for one another's health in a way that's, at least in this one, for instance, there's two moments where Patrick Wilson is saying, okay, come back now, stop that, because she has the abilities to see and kind of go into other realms, and there's always these moments where she's going too far and he's got to pull her back. It's no, she's got to keep going, otherwise this was all for nothing.
They need to move to Boca Raton and just chill the hell out. This is out of control. There's a scene where Arne is because he's on suicide watch because Lorraine knows that this witch is gonna get him, and the priest on duty, who seems so afraid and so, he's not a believer. This kid who's on suicide watch, he gives him a glass bottle of holy water, which immediately when I saw the glass bottle and knew he's on suicide watch, I'm well, he's going to break the bottle and try to kill himself, and that's what happens.
But it's this little vial, and somehow there's enough water in that
to tiny create little vial,
a very viscous looking circle around himself.
Okay, another decent scene is when, there's a side plot of two girls who go missing.
Who I believe are lesbians, but it's not really spelled out.
So this little witch's totem, the Warrens have an assistant who I feel is literally this little barnacle in the film. He has no...
Yeah, he pops up, there's no explanation.
But anyway, I
don't remember if he's introduced in the last one or not.
I don't know. But he's, they take a bunch of pictures of this witch's totem, and they tell their little assistant, go to all the police stations and see if anyone recognizes this little... It looks like someone took a deer's jaw and broke it into pieces and did origami.
I think somebody says oh, this is sophisticated.
Okay, so the assistant finds a police or a detective who recognizes it. So the Warrens go visit the detective
in Danvers, Massachusetts,
and he's yeah, I recognize this. There were 2 girls missing, and we found this in one of their dorm rooms or bedroom, whatever. but the detective's like, I'm not going to give you any information because, like, I know who you are. You're just a bunch of quacks. So he makes them prove that they're real. So he brings out 3 knives associated with a crime and says, you have to tell me which one's associated with the crime. And she chooses the correct one. And then the detective says, wow, you had a 1 out of 3 chance, but let's go.
You've chosen wisely.
And then Lorraine is able, like in a pretty long sequence, which was engaging enough, she's able to find like where the missing girl's body is. So then the detective says, I'll give you
the case file, which is
the case files. So anyway, Lorraine, so the scene that I thought worked well was Lorraine goes to like the morgue and she wants to touch the body of the dead girl to see if she can see.
Because that's the connection. Because during the initial exorcism in the beginning, she first sees glimpses of this witch when she touches the boy.
Yes. So she does see some things, but what I thought worked well is there's like it's not a cadaver because it's not being used for science, but there's like a dead body in this morgue that's like a heavy, big person, which is like attacking.
I think it can be a cadaver without having to be used for medical purposes.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. But I thought that worked well enough because then we see that dead corpse thing later on in the film.
Do you remember what I leaned over to you and said?
That it reminded you of Candy Muse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Candy Muse is...
My last note is the witch. So the witch who's causing all these problems, the daughter of the father. I thought that Arne, the actor playing Arne, looked just like the witch. Like for a couple seconds, I thought that Arne was the witch.
You're talking about, with the hair, Ruairi O'Connor, who was in the Postcard Killings.
I thought that was the witch. Like maybe he's manifesting as the...
To me, he looked kind of like Jesse Eisenberg.
Lastly, the father, the retired priest, I thought looked like Martin Landau mixed with Ellen Burstyn. Ellen Burstyn.
I thought more of Judi Dench than Ellen Burstyn. That's John Noble. He's a notable character actor. He's in Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Eugenie Bondurant plays his daughter, the witch, who's credited as the occultist, who is a very striking figure.
She is.
I wish, kind of Geraldine Chaplin-esque. And, obviously I looked her up, and she played Tigress in one of the Hunger Games films. She's kind of a striking feline figure. The soundtrack, like the other Conjuring films, is a bit on the nose, like Suspicious Minds, I think Call Me, because also Vera Farmiga is trying to call to alert them as that song's blaring. And then Eddie Money.
There is a reference to the Annabelle doll because the defense attorney for Arne is like, I'm not going to plead like not guilty due to demonic possession. Like you can't even convince me. We're not going to convince a jury. And then the Warrens say, well, we'll bring you back to our house and we'll introduce you to Annabelle and then you'll believe. I thought that was corny. There's also reference to the nun because we go into their little layer of artifacts and we see the nun in there. That's all I have.
Yeah.
What would you give this film?
2.
I would give it 2 out of 5 as well. Thank you.